Seriously? Really? This?
Can I
Okay.
get a fucking break?
Hello, 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 and welcome to Well Shit. It really is that simple. I'm Claire.
And I'm Serena. On this podcast, we help you to understand about your 12 universal needs, why they are currently not being well met,
How to meet them in ways that work for you, and how to consistently do so in quick, easy, and simple ways that fit seamlessly into your life.
We'll also help you to understand how doing so will have a positive ripple effect in literally every area of your life.
If you like what you hear, sign up for more support with meeting your needs with your weekly Universal Needs notes at theuniversalneeds.com.
And enjoy the show.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, everyone.
It's so funny because we do these recording days sometimes, and we're trying to do them kind of more sporadically, but we like to kind of give a little intro about like something that's going on in our life, but then we're on like the fourth episode of the day, and I'm like, I haven't done anything since the last episode. It was like 5 minutes ago that we recorded it, so I'm trying to think like what else is going on in my world right now. Oh, I need to put my thing on my phone on airplane mode. That's what's in my world right now. This whole like taking notes thing is great, but I have to keep remembering to put my phone on airplane mode so it doesn't affect the microphones.
You'll watch it evolve.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually,
Yes,
we won't
we'll
even
get
need
there.
to remind ourselves to put it on airplane mode.
So today we wanted to talk about something that kind of feels like a nice little lead on from the last kind of a couple of episodes we were doing about goal setting. And not because it's about goal setting necessarily, but I think it's something that's very important to remember contextually when you're goal setting. So like you want to remember, you want to set goals or set outcomes or intentions within this context. And that is, what is the difference between happiness and fulfillment, and which should we be aiming for? Because I think that most people think we should just be aiming to be happy, right? Like that's the goal. That's what most people think is the objective.
Pursuit of happiness.
Right. And it's so funny. I remember I read this book many, many years ago. It's one of my all-time favorite books. It's called New Self, New World by Philip Shepherd. And there's a part towards the end of the book which talks about the soul's hunger, like what the soul is hungry for, what it's craving in terms of life. And it talks about the pursuit of happiness. And I'm not going to read the entire thing now because it's a little in depth. But there was this one sentence, and it's important when an ADHD brain hangs on to this one sentence. And I read this years ago, and I've never forgotten this sentence because it really kind of hit me directly in my being. The sentence was, "The pursuit of happiness is a soulless enterprise." And basically what it was saying is that the soul is craving kind of richness and experience of life. And we often get distracted by what is going to make us happy, or we're trying to do stuff that's going to make us happy. But the soul isn't looking for just happiness. The soul is looking to experience everything that life has to offer. And I think that and it's funny, like, when I was I mentioned in, I think it was the last episode, maybe the one before, about the Yale course that I did on the science of well-being. And within that, they tended to be focused on what was making people happy or not happy. Like it was like, that was one of the measures. And all the way through, and there was some really helpful information in there. Don't get me wrong. I really enjoyed listening to, watching it and like looking at the research and everything. But I kind of kept going, oh, I feel like we're missing the point. Like, I really feel like we're missing the point here. Because happiness is very one-dimensional. And that's not to say that I don't like being happy, but it feels like everything's focused about like we should be happy all the time. Now, I don't know about anybody else listening to this, but I know certainly that the two people who are speaking on the podcast or hosting the podcast right now, life be lifing. And life does not often be lifing in a way that equates to happiness.
Mm-mm.
In fact, a lot of the things that happen in life and adulting and all those sorts of things, it's like, oh, seriously? Really? This? Okay.
Can I get a fucking break, please?
It was so funny. We just did a little break from our recording. I just got to do a little aside for a second. And I saw a TikTok that I meant to show you, and I forgot to do it, so I'm just going to tell you about it right now. And this guy was saying, he was like, I feel like it's one of those days. And the reason I'm saying is like, because like, a lot of the time when life happens, it's one of those days. And I felt this, Serena may resonate with this. She was like, it's like, I feel like it's one of those days where someone's going to ask me how strong I want my coffee, and my response is going to be, I want it to show up on a drug test. Like that's the thing. Like when life is happening, I think that the reason that for me, for a really long time, especially in the context of the needs work and the understanding of needs that we have, when life happens, very often we're not happy because things are happening where we lose somebody, or there's grief happening, or there's change happening, or there's situations happen that maybe we are struggling with, or there are challenges with friends or family or co-workers, or something happens to the business that we work for, and so that then creates this instability and everything. And I think that one of the issues with happiness is that it often leads to toxic positivity, with happiness being the focus. People thinking that happiness is the goal. And if you haven't already listened to it, I highly recommend going back and listening to our episode, How Toxic is Toxic Positivity, because the answer is really fucking toxic. Spoiler alert. But if you haven't listened to it, I highly recommend going and listening to it to understand why it is so problematic. But I think that the reason that because I mean, like, what is it? Life, love, and the pursuit of happiness, I think, is it? Like, is the
one of the
sayings in America. And obviously, being how ubiquitous American television and films are, like, that's a message that we hear almost no matter where we are in the world. And everyone seems to be focusing on being happy. And it seems like if you're not happy, people think there's something wrong with you. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're not like, hi,
What's
like,
wrong?
everyone's like, oh, huh?
But that's like, if you're not like all sunshine and rainbows, what's wrong? What's wrong with you?
Right.
What's wrong?
Exactly.
What's going on?
And it's like,
Adulting today, not with a smile. Like, sorry.
yeah. And I think that what ends up happening is, and again, putting this in this kind of needs context of the fact that a lot of us are dependent on other people to get our needs met until we learn how to meet our needs for ourselves and how to support ourselves in these ways. The fact that people think there's something wrong with us when we're not happy means that we try to create this mask of happiness or this illusion of happiness. And that is like almost the worst case scenario. This is like this kind of toxic positivity is like, everything's fine. I'm great. La 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 la, kind of thing. And I said that's almost the worst case scenario because we're not feeling it, but we're trying to portray it. So we create this kind of chasm between the reality, like what we're portraying to the world, and the reality that we have inside, that almost makes us feel even less happy because we feel like this is what we're supposed to be, but we're not being it. So we're kind of failing somehow. And I think that's ultimately what I have the biggest issue with happiness being the goal, is that the way that life unfolds, very rarely does happiness just land at our door on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. And this perception that if we're not happy, there's something wrong, i.e. with us or with what's going on in our world. And therefore, if we're not happy, we're somehow failing at life. And I think this is how a lot of times it gets internalized. And then because happiness is supposed to be the goal and everybody's supposed to be aiming at that, we then end up in this kind of shame spiral, which is like, well, why am I not happy? There's something wrong with me. There must be something wrong with me. Which creates a shame spiral, which moves us even further away from happiness. I mean, one of the things that I have seen and heard from clients so many times is, I have a great life. I have a great job. I have a great family or a great partner. I have great friends. I should be happy and I'm not, and I don't know why. And my question is, why should you be happy? Why are you aiming for happy? Why is happy the goal? Now, don't get me wrong. I like being happy as much as anybody. But happiness is one facet of our emotional experience and expression need. And in order to effectively meet our emotional experience and expression need, we need to experience, feel, accept, process, and express the full spectrum of emotions. So if somebody is always happy, ironically enough, their emotional experience and expression need is probably unmet, which I can imagine some people listening to this and going, what? Like, but I thought the point was happy. So obviously, if I'm happy, my emotional experience and expression need is being met, right? Right? And it's like, well, no, because it's natural for us to experience lots of different emotions. And even if we're experiencing something happy, that very rarely sits in isolation.
Mm-hmm.
Very rarely are we only experiencing happiness. So let's look at a great example from the last few days from myself. Last week, I went dancing. I had a great time. I was laughing with a friend of mine on the dance floor, and I felt happy for the first time in a long time. Like it's as you know from listening, things have been tough for a while here. We've been dealing with some seriously heavy things, and I felt joy, and it felt fantastic. And at the same time, that didn't negate the grief I'm still feeling. Like I was feeling happy, but that grief was still there. It didn't just go, oh, I'm off. Happiness is here now. Bye. Likewise, I feel deeply for the people in Palestine and Lebanon and Syria and all the places that the Congo and Sudan, like all of these places where these awful atrocities are happening. That doesn't go away just because happiness has popped in for a little visit. And while you are probably going to be feeling more or less of one emotion at any one period in time, it's very rarely that they're all kind of equally balanced. And you're just in this place of like, meh. Like, there's no, like, I'm not happy, I'm not sad, I'm not up, I'm not down, I'm somewhere in the middle, just like existing. It's true. The chances are that there are going to be times where you have like you're more connected to the happy that's present than you are maybe to the grief, or you're more connected to the grief than you are to the happy, even though both are present. Which means again, it's like, well, no, I'm just meant to feel happy, right? No, because you're human and you're complex and life is nuanced and there's a lot of stuff happening all at the same time. And I think, what was it? Anger, carrots, and judgment, where we talked about like the minestrone soup of emotions. The like we'll drop the episode in the show notes, where we talk about like the fact that there's often like a real mix of different emotions that are present at any one point in time. And I really take issue with the fact that people feel like they should be happy all the time. And there's something wrong with them if they're not happy all the time. And as a result, that they're failing somehow at life because life isn't happy. Well, not all the time. And I think that this is when it gets important to really put this needs lens on life. And also, you see your life through the needs lens, and you also see the needs lens through life. So it kind of works in both directions, in the sense that, yeah, you want to look at your life through the needs lens and go, okay, what needs are being met and unmet right now? And how do I meet those needs right now? And how do I cultivate those needs right now? So if you know emotional experience expression is the full processing and allowing and embracing and processing and expressing the full spectrum of emotions, and you are one note all the time, whether that one note is happiness, whether it is anger, whether it is sadness, whether it is joy, whether it is excitement, if you are only experiencing one note of emotion constantly and chronically by me, I mean over a long period of time, chances are your emotional experience expression need is not well met, because the one constant when it comes to emotions is change. So that's one of the things you want to look at it through and be like, hold on a second. This isn't all there is. And then when you try and make it all there is, that's when that toxic positivity comes in, where it's like, I'm trying to force happy. I'm trying to prove I'm happy, often to myself as much as to the rest of the world. And that's when we do the shiny, happy people on Facebook and social media and all those sorts of things. To be, look how happy I am. And everyone's like, "Oh, you look so happy." And it's interesting. Like I had a friend of mine posted on my one of my comments, commented on one of my posts recently. He was like, "I miss your smile," and I'm like, "Yeah, me too." Like it's like, and I still do smile. Obviously, I'm smiling right now, and like when things are appropriate to smile, I will do. Maybe the smile isn't quite as emphatic as it usually is because there's grief present at the same time as that smile. But it's okay to go through these ebbs and flows of life. The interesting thing about it is that having done this work for so long now, the result, I saw you take a note. Do you want to jump in before I kind of get on to the next piece?
Yeah, if you can remember yours, because it kind of
Yes,
tails
I can
on
remember
to
mine.
that
Yep.
emotional experience and expression. When we're trying to find happiness, we do rarely, like, there have been so many situations we've been in where we're in this zone of happiness and something happens and we're fighting tooth and nail to like cling on to this happiness, and it's like, and it becomes work and it ends up like destroying the night. And it's like, if we had
Yep.
just let what was present come through, move along, we could have probably regained that like happiness that we were like so desperately wanting. And it's weird because we kind of stop the process, and in stopping the process of letting other emotions in, you literally stop the flow. And it's
Right.
like, and you become
Yeah.
kind of isolated in this happiness, and it's like, I can't move at all or I'm not going to be happy anymore, so I have to stay right here and do just this. And it's like, it restricts you so much. And it's like also on the flip side, I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but like, I think when there's something like grief, and we've talked about it multiple times in the instance in how I handle grief, like if you're isolating your emotions, you don't allow happiness to come into grief. You don't let the happiness come into some of those more undesirable emotions that may be present. So it's like you isolate your happiness to just happiness, and you don't let anything in, and you don't let happiness come anywhere. That, oh no, I can't, I'm in sadness, I cannot find happiness here. Or
Right.
I'm in anger, I cannot also find happiness in this moment of anger. Like I find
Well,
it very, like I talk about, I find it very isolating to like,
right.
it's like
Well,
happiness
this,
is a box.
yeah, it's interesting. I'm coming back to the box in a second. A couple of things based on what following on from what Serena just said. The first thing is that that she's absolutely right. Like, and when you get kind of stuck in that place, it becomes very hollow. Like the irony is that you actually remove the joy from the happiness, so it's not actually joy. It's not actually happiness anymore. It's just a stagnant kind of mask that
It's like you're at a
doesn't
party with no
feel.
people.
Exactly. And the interesting thing is that Serena was saying about like these moments where we've like tried to hold on to the happiness. And the irony of it is that we were just talking about this earlier today off like when we weren't recording about the zombie bike ride. The zombie bike ride is an odd experience every single year for us because we do have fun every year, and like we get dressed up and we do all the things and everything. And then the evening inevitably just fizzles or goes weird or goes sideways. And it's like, but we so want to just enjoy the whole night, and we want it to be more than just that moment that we had. So we try and force it to be more than that. And it's like, it's just not meant to be. And we end up not enjoying the thing that we're trying to do to enjoy because we want it to be happy. We want it to be this fun thing.
Yeah, if we had just like let it be the happy thing, and then when we weren't feeling it anymore, done something different, chances are we would have found happiness around another corner. But we're chasing this. It has to look like this in this place, and this is what it's going to be right this moment. And no, like not as we were saying, not a single year have we gotten past the ride. But we've always been we're like, we're gonna go to this place and it's gonna change, the mood's gonna change, the energy is gonna change, and I
think it's because we put so much effort into the costume. We're like, we don't want it to just be the ride. We want to go and make the most of this. And like, but if you're not feeling it, it's not present. And interestingly enough, that's what happened last night. Was I got to that point where I'm like, I am not feeling this. I'm going to go home. And that's what I did. I came home. I took off my makeup, which is a little bit sad about because I love my makeup from last night and I was so happy with how it came out. And I tidied up and I went to bed. And like the day we've had today, the busyness we've had today, I needed that. Like I needed to go to bed. but I could have so easily forced myself to stay out and go to places that I wasn't really feeling in a time when I wasn't really like, I wanted something. I was hungry. I wanted to eat. Like foundation function need popped up to the surface. And shockingly, when your foundation function need is up, finding happiness, a little difficult. So I think that, so it can happen that way. It also can happen the other way, which is that when something pops in that is other than happy, and you allow yourself to flow with it, you can experience some real joy on the other side of it. But you can't experience that joy while this other thing is blocking it. And so blocking that flow and what have you is the thing that prevents us from really allowing us to authentically feel all these different emotions in their entirety rather than this hollow version of them. Now, the interesting thing is what Serena was saying about the whole grief thing, like it brought me back to many, many years ago. I lost a very, very dear family friend. I wasn't able to get home for the funeral. I was actually in the US. And so I was like trying to watch things that would help me to kind of connect to and process what I was feeling. And there was this TED talk called Beyond Closure, which was about grief. And they were talking about how grief it's like a box where we want to put a lid on it and like put it on a shelf and it to be done. And for us to be able to like, we want closure. We want to be done with grief and to put it on the shelf. But the issue is that you can't contain grief in that way, because so often grief is so intrinsically connected to love and joy and happiness and all the other things. And the grief is because of these things. And these things are connected to the grief. So by putting by putting the grief in the box, we put all the other stuff in the box as well. We don't get to feel those other things. And they were saying about like how most people, if they've lost somebody close to them, what they really want to do is they want to tell stories about them. I mean, they want to share about the love. They want to share about the joy. They want to share about the laughter. And that inevitably leads to experiencing love and joy and laughter in those moments. But because we get so like, oh no, it has to be in, like, let's put the box away. It's uncomfortable. We don't want the grief box out. We end up like, I mean, there have been so many times where we've shared stories about Serena's mum. Either she shared them with me or we've shared them with other people. And like, Serena is like laughing and crying and everything all at the same time, because it's this like grief is this combination of all of these different things. You're feeling the loss while feeling the love, while feeling the laughter, while remembering these cherished moments. And if you try and shut one down because it's not happiness, you actually shut down a lot of the joy you still get to experience by remembering your loved ones and the moments you have with them.
And the wholeness of that feeling of
yes.
like, because you do it, and grief is an easy example to take this from, because societally in society, grief is sadness, grief is sorrow, it's dark, it's down, there isn't
heavy.
Yeah, there isn't room for lightness. That's not appropriate. Like, I never forget sitting at a funeral, getting the giggles with my mom and my Nana being like, I don't know them. We're like, she came out of you and I came out of her. You know us. Like, I mean, it's just, there was joy present at that moment. And we weren't trying to be like inappropriate or anything, but it was like, nope.
There was another one where you got the giggles and you had to pretend you were crying because nobody would have accepted.
Funeral.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, poor girl. And I'm like, and I can't breathe because I'm laughing so hard. And it's just, and that was present and never.
And there were a lot of tears and grief as well. Like, it wasn't one or the other.
And it feels kind of wishy-washy. Like I'm saying it, I'm like, it probably seems a little like, you know, unmanaged or something, but it's like, no, that like there's so much dimension in all of that, which is like, and I look back at it, it's like, yeah, that shitty. I was at a funeral and remember that. I mean, that was pretty funny. Like, and that happened. And it's like, you can look at things and then your experiences become multidimensional if you let the feelings be multidimensional. And, you know, and sometimes we let in a feeling, we're like, all right, let's let this through, and it stays there. And you're like, well, fuck, now I'm in this space. Maybe you needed to be in that space. Like, this is part of your process. And I think that's also part of the challenge with it. There's so many times I'm like, no, I don't want to let that in, because once it's here, it's here. And it's like, well, if it's knocking at the door, like, it may walk around the building, but it's coming back. Like, I may as well deal with it.
And every time you go outside, it's going to be sat there waiting for you. And it's like, I mean, like, and when we try and force ourselves into happiness, we end up often extending the process. Like I've shared multiple times about like when I went through my first really big major breakup, where I lived with the person, and I fell apart for 3 days, and then I forced myself into new start, new life, new job, new home, new place, new town, new all the things. And I tried to force myself into happy because that's what I wanted to feel. And then 6 months later, I get steamrolled by the grief that I haven't felt. And it extends the process. It makes it harder. It makes it more laborious. And it's inauthentic. It's not the authentic experience. And I said, I think so many people feel like if I'm not happy, I'm failing. I'm doing something wrong. Like there's something wrong with me if I'm not happy. And I think that's because we believe that happiness is the point, or we've been indoctrinated or conditioned societally to believe that it's the point. But in our experience, something else is the point. And that something else is being the point is fulfillment. And that's the reason we talk about fulfillment. We do talk about happiness at times because I think sometimes it's the term that resonates with people. They're like, well, what does fulfillment mean? I know what happy is. Like, I remember what it is to feel happy. Well, I don't know what fulfillment is. That's because most of us have never felt it, because fulfillment is the consistent or effective meeting of your 12 universal needs. And that's when you feel fulfillment, is when your needs are well met. Now, why is fulfillment different to happiness? The reason that fulfillment is different to happiness is you do not need a situation to be happy in order to be fulfilled. So when life be lifing, when those things happen, when you lose somebody, when something happens with your career or your work, when something happens, when there's a natural disaster, when there's all of these things that happen, a lot of the time in those moments, we don't feel happy, but your needs can still be fulfilled within the context of the thing that you're doing. One of the primary examples of this, coming back to what we were talking about at the beginning, is emotional experience and expression need. You can be meeting your need for emotional experience and expression can be met when you're feeling rage. Your emotional experience and expression need can be met when you're feeling grief, when you're feeling despair, when you're feeling disappointment. As long as you are feeling, processing, and expressing those feelings, that need is still met. And it's very, very different connecting to this understanding that the way to meet our emotional needs is to be with the emotions that are present, versus the way to meet our emotional needs is to try and force ourselves to be happy at times when happiness isn't even a blip on the horizon. I mean, it would be very easy for me in the last month or so to be like, well, I'm failing at life. I'm not happy right now. And the truth of the matter is, no, I haven't been happy, but I've still been able to fulfill my needs. Even when I'm in a puddle crying to Serena about the things that have happened, I'm still fulfilling my needs. And what it does is it gives you, when you make happiness the goal, a lot of the time we don't know how to get there, because how do you get to happiness from grief? I mean, you process the grief and then naturally joy will come at some point in time, is the actual answer to that question. But a lot of people are like, well, I'm in a puddle on the floor right now. How do I get to be happy? It's like the people who go, well, I hate myself. How do I love myself? Like, it's a journey. But the thing is if the point is, if you're trying to get to happy when you're not in a space where there's any kind of happy present, it can be very difficult to figure out the path. If your focus is fulfillment, and we know that in order to be fulfilled, we have to take care of the roots of our universal needs tree first. So the survival needs, the first 3 needs in the universal needs tree. Then we need to take care of the trunk of the tree, which is our intrinsic needs, which is the next 4 needs. Then we need to focus on our expansive needs, which are our branches of the tree. And then we need to focus on the leaves and fruit of the tree, which are our enriching needs. Because we know what the 12 universal needs are when we go through the program, and we are actually, just so you know, we are working on a version of the program. We shared this before, and because if you're listening to this going, are they ever going to tell us what these damn needs are? Yes, we are. Once we have this project done that we're doing, we are going to be sharing with you what the 12 universal needs are. So it is coming, I promise. And if you're like, why the hell aren't they sharing them right now? There's an episode, we'll share it in the show notes talking about why we don't tell you what the 12 universal needs are currently. There's a very, very important and very responsible reason why we're doing that. But we do share some of the needs as we go. We're just not going in depth.
Little nuggets here and there.
Yes, exactly. And so because we know here are our 12 universal needs. We know we got to start at the roots and work our way up. We know we've got the red-green spectrum. We want to try and meet our needs in more green spectrum than red spectrum ways. That they want to be more towards the green end of the spectrum. It gives us a path to fulfillment no matter what is going on, no matter what situation or circumstances there are in our lives. And like a great example of this is natural disaster. So as most of you know, Serena and I both went through experiencing Hurricane Irma when she hit the Florida Keys in 2017. Now, I remember speaking to a friend of mine after we got back, and I was like, damn, I wish I'd like done my needs practice as a formal practice as I went through it, because it would have been a great testimonial. She was like, Claire, I don't think you realize you embody this work so much. I watched you live the practice and you literally went through it step by step. And I was like, oh, you're right. Actually, I hadn't thought about that. So what I did was like first thing, foundation functioning. What are the things that we're going to need to be able to survive physically? Where's our gas, water, food, all those supplies that we needed? Then the next thing was security. It's like, okay, where do we get to in the security? We need to get the hell out of Dodge because there's a Cat 5 hurricane coming right for us. So we need to escape and get to a place that feels more secure. Then once we got to a place where we were secure finally, actually kind of through that transition into that, like we were on our path to a more secure place. At that point, I was connecting with people. Like it was all about love and connection need. I'm like taking care of myself. I was doing yoga and things that were like I love to do that are supportive to myself while I was on the road. But I was also reaching out to people. I'm okay, letting people know where we are, and like I was doing like video updates, sharing about the experience. And then when I got to the place where I was safe and I was secure and everyone knew I was okay, I took some time to acknowledge how I was feeling. Emotional experience expression kicked in. Big time did it kick in. And I was like an emotional wreck for several days. So I basically, even in a situation where natural disaster of huge magnitude that I am not equipped for, I'm from England. We don't have that sort of experience in England. So I was like, okay, this is new. What the hell? How do we do this? But it gave me a path. So my needs could still be fulfilled, even though I was dealing with chaos around me, even though I was dealing with grief and fear and anxiety and uncertainty and all of those things. I knew what the building blocks were. And as I built up the building blocks, it opened up possibility for the other needs to then be taken care of and supported. Same thing that's happened as I've gone through this recent heartbreak is that what did I do? I first focused on rest. I focused on hydration. I focused on nutrition. I kept doing my detox. I was getting out and moving and exercising my body. Then I'm at security. What's the short-term plan I need? Well, I plan to go live on a boat for 2 months. That was the plan I created. I was connecting with the people who I loved. Then the emotions came, and boy, did the emotions come. Like it's like, but like the beautiful thing is that the world doesn't need to look a certain way in order for us to be fulfilled. A lot of the time, the world, we think or we believe the world needs to look a certain way in order for us to be happy. And therefore, it means that happiness is really vulnerable because it is totally dependent on other people behaving in a certain way, other situations remaining in a certain way or changing in a certain way, things that are completely outside of our ability to control. Like, though some people have made comments to the contrary, humans don't control hurricanes. Like it's not something I can go, no, don't want a hurricane this week. I mean, trust me, if we did, there would be a whole different outcome happening. Like a couple of weeks ago, I'm like, I am done with this hurricane season. I cannot do this again because we had a couple of major ones in a very short period of time and it was scary. So if you need to not have those sorts of situations happening in order to be happy, you're screwed basically as far as life is concerned, because life be lifing. And like, there's always going to be something. There's like, very rarely is there a situation where there's nothing for you to overcome, deal with, face in just experiencing day-to-day life. But if your focus shifts to fulfillment, at that point, then, okay, I can still create fulfillment. I can still create growth when shit's falling apart around me. I can still create personal power because I can choose how I'm going to deal with something, even when shit's falling apart around me. I can still connect to my value as a human being, even if everybody around me is acting in a certain way that they don't see it. And once you can connect to that, at that point, you can create fulfillment. And fulfillment, it comes back to that soul's hunger. Like, fulfillment is what the soul is craving. It's what we want out of life. But we've been indoctrinated to believe we only should want happiness and we should only be focused on happiness. Now, does this mean that you don't ever want to experience joy? No, that's not what I'm saying. And it doesn't mean to say we can't create joy and create more happiness within the context of other things that are going on in our lives. Not as a distraction, not as a way of avoiding certain emotions that are present, but if we're in a kind of little bit of an emotional vacuum where we're not really feeling a huge amount at that point in time, at that point we can be like, okay, now we want to create some happiness. Now we're actually going to do something. What are the things that make me happy? This, and this, and this, and this makes me happy. Okay, I want to cultivate more of that aspect of my emotional experience expression need. I'm going to start doing things that bring in more of that. Not only that, more of that, but that still allows me to experience the other emotions as they come in and as they work their way into our experience.
It's funny. I just realized the other night I watched Inside Out 2, the Pixar movie.
Oh, I haven't seen it yet. No spoilers.
It's well, and that's what I'm trying to figure out how to say this without spoiling anything. It's interesting because they kind of, I hadn't realized it till just as you were talking. It's kind of this concept that, I mean, obviously, if you know the Inside Out movie, Joy is the kind of main emotion character.
Mm-hmm.
And in this one, the little girl is becoming a young woman and there are different emotions present, but you see the effect that just joy, just trying to achieve happiness has. And at the end of it, it's interesting what's created once it is realized that it can't be just one emotion, that it can't just be one thing. So like little kind of teaser in there, but it's very much like that where, you know, like, you know, you want a visual representation, watch this cartoon and you'll be like, oh.
Well, it's funny because
I put a needs lens on it as I was watching it, and then all of a sudden it just came together. I'm like, there we go.
Well, and it's funny because I've heard good things about the movie, and it's like on my to watch list. And I've heard people say that it's like a must watch for all adults, like that everybody should watch this movie. And I'm curious to sort of see how it unfolds based on that knowledge. And the reason that we really wanted to like share about this now is that we've obviously just talked about goal setting. We've obviously talked about how you might want to create your outcomes and intentions for the year in the context of certain emotions, plural, not just one, and certain words. And we really want to invite you to create from this understanding of that the objective is fulfillment rather than happiness, because I think that's what, I mean, I can't speak for Serena. I suspect that her experience is very similar to mine, but for a lot of years, that's what I was trying to cultivate. Like I was trying to make sure, like my goals were like, this is going to make me happy. I'm doing the things that are going to make me happy. But the problem is I'm trying to do these things that make me happy, which if you go back and listen to the previous couple of episodes, you'll realize actually often don't make you happy. The whole miswanting concept, which I think is in the last episode that we shared, which is like miswanting being things that our brain convinces us that things will make us happy that won't, or they won't make us as happy as we think they will. And so a lot of time, one, we're aiming at things that probably aren't going to make us happy anyway. And two, when we're on the journey to create these things or to try and achieve these things, then life happens and it's like, oh, okay, all right, no, I'm going back to happy. Oh, no, I'm over here. Oh, crap. Like, where's happiness gone? Oh, no, which way's up? No, it's up there. Okay, I'm back on track, and then poof, and it's like this constant like battering of like, and it's like fighting. The way it feels to me it's like fighting upstream. It's like trying to walk up a river that's like flowing in the other direction, rather than allowing yourself to flow with the river and going, oh, there's a spiky bit over there. If I just like paddle this way a little bit, I'm going to avoid the really spiky bit. But that hit. That hurt. Okay, that's fair. That hurt. Okay, what else can I do to kind of like support the flow, like go with the flow of the river in a way that I'm not avoiding the reality of being in the weather, in the weather, in the weather too, in the river. But if you're not avoiding that reality, but you're also not trying to go against the flow of what life is doing, because that's what happens so often, is that life is trying to pull us in this direction and we are stubbornly trying to force our way in another direction. And life's like, good luck with that. And we're like, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be happy. Doesn't matter what you say. And it's like, if you would just allow yourself to flow, one, it's exhausting doing that, like trying to pull up against the flow of the river. But also, you don't know where the river's going to end up taking you. And it could end up taking you to a place where it's like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like all of a sudden you end up in some like whirlpools, or sometimes you end up like on a bank with a beautiful view, or like, and you don't know where it's going to take you, but trying to force it to look a certain way because you've been conditioned to believe that's the way it's supposed to look. And if it doesn't look that way, there's something wrong with you, or you're doing something wrong, when in actual fact, everybody experiences this, because this is just the experience of life. Is how we want to start to kind of get your thinking going in a different direction. So if you are starting to create some outcomes and intentions for this year, if you are starting to create some like little goals to kind of get those dopamine hits we talked about a couple of episodes back, really be mindful of like, where are you kind of dropping into this societal conditioning around, I got to try and be happy, versus where can you cultivate fulfillment, where you're taking care of your needs, you're allowing yourself to feel the benefit of, and that's where that feeling of fulfillment comes from, is that when your needs are met, and Serena can speak to this just as easy as I can, when your needs are well met, there is a feeling associated with it that is, it's not happiness. It is a different quality of feeling. And I don't know if I know how to put it into words. Do you?
I mean, it really is fulfillment. Like I mean, it does. It fills you up. It feels secure. It feels stable. Like you feel like you almost imagine yourself as the tree. Like it's like you feel like you do. You embody it. It's like, and I know you can embody pretty much. I mean, you probably can embody any emotion, but like this is like it is a like from deep within, just outward, like.
Right. And I think because it runs through all these different aspects of our being, it's not just a feeling. It's like it's a feeling that's connected with a physical reality, that's combined with an emotional reality, that's combined with an energetic reality, that's combined with a somatic reality. Like it's like all of these things combined together.
It's like your being. It becomes your like
exactly, you're being it, and and it takes some time, like some time and consistency of having your needs met to really kind of connect to that feeling. But even like that momentary fulfillment where you hit it and you're like, ooh, it reminds me of like, I don't know whether anyone's ever had this, where I remember when I first started meditating, where like there was like an experience that you expect to feel, where you're kind of like, Zenned out is the only way I can describe it, and I'm not sure if that's appropriative. We need to be mindful of that. But I like just feeling like connected and serene and like dropped in. Like that's what and I remember that
blissful state.
Exactly, that kind of blissful beingness state. And I remember like when I first started meditating, I'd be like, oh, I was thinking about the washing. No, I don't have to worry about the washing. What do I got to get the shops for? No. Let's focus back on the thing. And I'd be like distracted all the time. And then every now and again, I'd hit that experience. And I'd drop into that experience. And I'd be like, oh, I'm feeling it. And the second I would be like, oh, I'm feeling it, it would pop out. I'd pop out of it again. And it was like, no, I was there. Like, and it's like, and then like, you'd like chill out a bit more, and then you'd hit it a bit more. And then it like, but the second you realize that you'd hit it, you were thinking again in a way that pulled you out of it again. And it's kind of a little bit like that with the needs, where like when you hit that initial fulfillment, it's like, oh, what was that? Like that felt good. And so you do more of the same thing because you want to experience more of that feeling again. And then it's like, oh, I did it again. That's cool. And then by being consistent with it, then you start to kind of drop into this kind of embodiment of it. Like as Sri says, it's something that you, first of all, you do, and then eventually you be. It becomes part of who you are. And when you kind of get into that beingness, that full, like feeling that fulfillment, like through every cell of your body, I'm connecting to the feeling right now, just as we're talking about it. And it just feels warm and
supportive.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's exactly it. It feels supportive. It feels supported. It feels, and the good thing about it is that when you start to feel that and you start to feel that consistently, you have this beautiful foundation from which you then naturally want to support others, from you naturally want to give to others, because that's what fulfillment. And it's like, they talk about like happiness and like random acts of kindness, and you do things and pass it on kind of thing. And it's this kind of brief fleeting thing. Whereas in my experience, when you have that fulfillment and you kind of naturally it just ripples out in a way that I don't think I've experienced anything else in life.
No, and it's a genuine, real feeling. Like,
yes,
there's no questioning. Yeah, it's very authentic. Like, you don't question, like, am I happy, or like, am I feeling? It's just like, it just happens, and it, like, and it just is, and it is. Very much indescribable in the sense, like, I feel like we could talk hours about how it feels, and until you're in that moment. And I remember when I hit the moment, I'm like, oh, okay. And then when it started becoming consistent, you look back and you're like, I could be in a shit space, and I, take a moment. I'm like, actually, I'm not doing too bad. Like, I'm just in a shitty moment. So let's go with this. And
we let the moment pass. And it reminds me, like, very, very much, I had a client many, many years ago. And when she came to, she'd taken my business card at an event. And at one point, the business card randomly fell out of her pocket, and she took it as a sign to reach out to do a discovery session with me. And we were talking, and she was sharing about what was going on with her, and I was sharing about what we do and like how what we do can help. And I remember this vividly saying, I can see where you're going to get to, and from where you are now, you don't even believe that place is possible. And we worked together for a while, and she said to me at one point, she went, do you remember when you said this to me? And I was like, yeah, I do. She was like, I'm here, and I didn't believe you at the time, and now I realize that you were right. And I said to her, I was like, you know what the cool thing is? And she's like, what? And I was like, you're still not there yet. There's more to come. I can still see where you're going, and it's still even deeper than you even believe. Like, this is where you are now. You didn't think was possible from where you were, and you've still got a ways to go where you can get even more into this experience of life. And it really was this kind of magical moment. Sorry, I had a brief internet blip there, which cut me out for a second. But yeah, it really is this magical moment where, and when you experience it yourself, but then when we're able to help other people experience it, it really is something incredible. And that's why we wanted to share this with you towards the beginning of the year, so that the conversations that you're having in your own mind and the decisions you're making about how you do things through the year ahead, if you can focus on fulfillment, which kind of links back to that inside out kind of goal setting and stuff that we were talking about in the previous episodes, I think it's going to set you up to have a much more fulfilling year, no pun intended, than you may have done previously, because it really creates a different experience. And it doesn't matter so much what happens in your life and in your experiences. It just allows you to focus on the things that you can do to cultivate fulfillment within the context of those experiences. Anything you want to add before we kind of finish up for the day?
Good.
So thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We hope you've enjoyed this kind of introductory sort of set of sessions for the year to really help set you up to have the most fulfilling 2025 possible. We'll be back again next week with another episode. But between now and then, remember to stay safe, take care of yourself, and to continue to meet your own needs. Lots of love. Bye.
Bye, friends.
That's it for today.
If you like what you heard,
and would like to see some of Serena's awesome facial expressions,
check out the video podcast on YouTube.
And remember, in our experience, it's always better, rather than focusing on happiness, instead to focus on fulfillment.
Well, shit. It really is that simple.